We'll get rocking and rolling, folks. Super excited to have you again. And wanted to let you know we're going to be talking about Copilot. We've got some slides from Microsoft as well as our content that we'll be interspersing in here, and a couple of demos that Microsoft put together. In case you don't know who Alex and I are, here's some information about us. This is a really nice way of saying that we're both getting on the older side, as well as we've been in technology for some time. Additionally, Cygnus has been a Microsoft partner, Alex, I think since its inception, right?
Yeah, actually, it's been quite a long time.
It seems like the pace of change continues to get faster and faster, particularly for technology, and then really how industry and companies leverage that technology seems faster and faster every day. This next slide is a kind of a staggering one in terms of looking at the time it takes for certain technologies that they've outlined here to reach 100 million users. So as an example, this 16 years for mobile phones to reach 100 million users, internet was 7, Facebook 4.5, and ChatGPT a whopping 3 months. So really unbelievable.
Yeah, there's probably about, I think there's about 150 million now actually on chat.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And so the impact is real, and technology typically is a pretty big driver of gross domestic product. As you can see on this graph, back in like the 1800s, it was about a 4x, and into the 2000s, it's been over 20x. And you can kind of see as they've had some small things on here like transistors, PCs, internet, cloud, and now AI, that should just continue to grow.
You know, one of the things I'll share with everybody here is I had a chance to get a sneak preview at Microsoft's announcement to the small business channel of Microsoft Copilot when they first introduced it to partners. And they shared some of this information with us. And it's just amazing at how one product has really transformed the industry and is going to continue to transform the industry. Just to give you some insight, Microsoft has, led the way as it pertains to PC technology development over the many years. And so they're betting the bank on this product being the forefront of everything that they do, including Windows and Azure. So just to give you a little bit of insight in terms of where Microsoft is on this, it's something that will be prominent in really everybody's life, whether we like it or not.
Great point, Alex. So Microsoft did a study on internal Copilot users across various functional areas. And here's some of the key findings that they found. I'll let you kind of take a glance at some of these statistics. I thought some of them were informative.
Yeah, one of the things I think there's some really interesting stats about how I think they did independent market studies based on who actually used Copilot for a certain period of time. And they determined that on average, it helped people save, just in terms of productivity, 10 hours on average per month. And so that's a rather conservative guess based on some of its capabilities, which we're excited to show you here today. So
yeah, and in that same study, Microsoft found 64% of their respondents said they didn't have enough time to do their job, and that they were spending a great deal of time on the communication aspect of stuff, answering emails and chats and all the other things that we do. And so really that left only about 43% of their time for kind of the creative thinking, strategic thinking, that really kind of helps move the needle. And that kind of imbalance, if you will, is what Microsoft calls a digital debt. Certainly, they found 87% of leaders feel that AI is going to have help their business gain a competitive edge, probably why you're here. And there's a couple of key questions that leaders are asking, which is, how will the organization seize the full potential of AI while safeguarding the business, the data, and the employees, along with how can you leverage that for a better customer experience? A recent Work Trend Index report said that 64% of the employees, like we showed in the last time, don't have enough time. And employees lacking time and energy at their job are 3.5 times more likely to struggle with innovation or strategic thinking. And so while 49% of people were a little concerned about AI potentially replacing them, a staggering 70% still found that they would delegate tasks or work to AI. So it seems the benefits outweigh the potential risks, even for folks that might be concerned on your teams. In terms about preparing for AI, there's some things that the business needs to consider in terms of what do you want it to accomplish? What are some of the concerns that you have, along with what capabilities and things do you have in place, where the data is stored, along with the IT infrastructure, be it cloud or on-premise or both, like most organizations, and how all that's going to interact to most powerfully impact your ability to implement artificial intelligence.
Yep. One of the key areas, if you can go back to that for a moment, I know we'll harp on that for a second, is really that fourth component. Really, what data strategy do you currently have in place in terms of where you store your documents, how are they stored, who has access to them? Because essentially, this AI tool is going to basically unleash itself on its ability to access that information and pull up whatever it can find. And we'll get into that a little bit more here.
So becoming an AI-powered business begins with kind of three paths, if you will. And I think about it paths because I don't know that they're sequential, Alex. I think about it, in terms of empowering the employees to leverage secure tools like Copilot to be able to help them do their job as they kind of get into that and figure out that skill. Additionally, where you keep your data, obviously this is some Microsoft slides, and we're a big proponent of the Microsoft stack. So standardizing on that Microsoft ecosystem, which you'll see later, really gives this Copilot some additional power. And then making sure that you're organizing and protecting key data. So let's dive a little bit more into Copilot. So Copilot, there's a couple of pieces to understand. So it's built on the latest AI models, with ChatGPT is one of them, DAL E3 for images. Being able then to protect the business data, we'll delve a little bit deeper into this. But obviously, what's nice from the Microsoft ecosystem in Copilot, is that the data is not saved. It's your data. It's within the ecosystem that is your 365 tenancy. And it's not leveraging the input that you give it to give other people's AI learning and skills outside of that. I don't know if Alex, there's anything more that you wanted to add with that?
Yeah, I think it's important there's probably a few people that might have questions regarding, how ChatGPT plays into this whole thing, right? And so Microsoft, and some would say prematurely, unleash this super powerful AI tool, like many others, into the environment. And quite frankly, they just kind of put it in everyone's hands to see what would happen. It evolved to the next version, to the 3.0, and then to eventually the 3.5 version. And shortly after that, a lot of people were using it. As you saw, 100 million users. Now it's closer to like 150 million users, which is just insane in terms of the adoption rate. But the key difference is that the 3.5 version, which if you go to Bing, or you can just openai.com and get to it, these are like the earlier versions. They have the terms of understanding is really in generating text. It got better in terms of understanding context and nuances in language, but it still had and has some limitations with respect to generating longer and more complex content. When you look at the ChatGPT 4.0, again, this is separate from Copilot. We'll get into some of the differences there. ChatGPT 4.0 is a subscription-based version that allows you to buy it for $20 a month. I have a subscription. We get no discounts. And it represents basically a more significant step forward, where it leverages the platform, but it has a larger, more sophisticated model. And it provides more nuanced and contextually aware responses. So it's a lot more natural compared to 3.5. It has a deeper understanding of subtle distinctions in terms of what you're asking it. So it kind of, if you ask something or misspell it or otherwise, it kind of guesses pretty well in terms of how it handles that, as well as abstract and complex inquiries. So it's really trained on kind of a much wider and broader range of data, and it has improved performance in terms of its response. So that's one of the key differences, but understand that that's really kind of the engine that's behind this whole Copilot thing. And so Copilot, as we'll get into some of the demonstrations here, it really gets into the actual application. So think of it as this powerful AI tool, this Chat GPT pay-for-play 4.0 version, if you will, embedded into Microsoft 365, all the cool apps that you come to know and love, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, and the rest. And we'll get into some demos. Some of them are rather short and quick, but again, these are from Microsoft. We want to give you a little taste. So
here's a few use cases, if you will, in terms of ways that you can leverage artificial intelligence. Some of you may have already leveraged some of these and some of the things that Alex mentioned as well. So right now, Microsoft Copilot has got a couple of versions. One is the free one. So if you open up Bing as a browser rather than Google, as an example, you'll see this little icon, the Copilot icon there, where you can get some web searching types of tools and check that out in terms of what it's able to produce for you. And I've played with that as well, rather than just typing in a traditional search. One of the unique things and one of the differences, Alex, that I saw with Copilot is that it also will give you the websites or sources of the information that it's leveraging for the content, which is kind of nice. I haven't seen that in ChatGPT 3.5, Alex. I don't know if 4.0 gives that or if it just gives the information.
no, it does. Yeah, the 4.0 does. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other one here is kind of the paid for version from Microsoft in terms of 365, Microsoft 365 for Copilot, what that includes. And we'll delve a little bit deeper into that.
Now understand that $30 per month per user is on top of your regular Microsoft 365 licensing. And Microsoft priced this model out to where it's an annual commitment subscription-based service. So you're actually paying for it all for the first, you're paying for it annually. Why they did that, we don't know, but it's one of the things that, that they change in terms of their model.
So really, kind of like what you were talking about, Alex, with Copilot, you can kind of get the web search type stuff along with the data within the Microsoft 365 tenancy to really unleash kind of a new level of power for the artificial intelligence. And really, as we talk about this, it's important to understand that Copilot adherence, if you will, the organization's existing 365 or Microsoft tenancy, along with the security, the compliance, and privacy policies that you've implemented or not, hopefully with stuff, so that there's always control that's there. So by design, Copilot respects user-specific and group permissions. So as an example, if there's a leadership team and Alex was on it and I wasn't, and if I search for documents as a non-member of that team, I won't have access to those types of things. And you'll see a little bit more of that. But I think it's an important aspect, Alex, in terms of just the data security and the fact that it's within the tenancy itself, just as a Microsoft approach to perhaps what other people, whether it's Google or who else comes out, how they're going to handle it. I think that may be a distinction there.
Yeah, and that graphic that's there on this slide is pretty interesting because if you think of like the semantic index right there, that's kind of, let's call it the brains of it, if you will. What it does is it's interacting with your data, which Microsoft calls the Microsoft Graph. And so when you think of the Microsoft Graph, that's really your data within your tenancy. So it's all your files, your user access information, your calendar, any chats or meetings or messages you have. And so that's your data. And this is what I think really is the clear distinction between, say, differences between chat in terms of, just providing access to the web versus access to your actual data, all in these forms within the actual applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. And so we'll show you a little bit more in terms of what that looks like.
So really, again, just a little more clarification within the Copilot. It's kind of taking that large language model, which is allowing you to speak to it, if you will, or type to get information, adding, if you will, the Microsoft graph that Alex just articulated it to, along with leveraging some of the applications within Office that you're probably well aware of and use every day, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and Teams, along with including the internet itself and broadening that beyond that for information. From a security perspective, it's important to kind of understand that there's some security components within the Microsoft tenancy itself. There are varying levels of subscription, as many of you may know, for a number of their different products, and they allow you to mix and match. So where you're at with those in terms of the subscriptions, along with the security and the interoperability of the different components, is kind of an individualized situation, which is one of the reasons we're really not taking a lot of questions within this. We prefer to try and talk with you one-on-one just about your unique situation and what would be required if this is something that begins to interest you with that. This is what we're talking about, where it's tying into these applications that you're very well aware of. We're going to get into. So this is going to be the little commercial for Microsoft. So it'll kind of go pretty quickly, but we're going to hit play here. You'll hear a little bit of music in the background as well.
Whoa.
Coming through okay, Alex?
Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop. Stand still, that's the motto. Yeah, brand new bands for the auto. Oh, foot to the ground, full throttle. Big energy for the night like lotto. Y'all talk lots, never this quiet. Life like a Seinfeld plot. Ball full of songs, all of them bombs. Something like a minefield guy. Boom. Get it, tickets running out quick. Bet it, never get it outbid. Said it, never had to shout it. They said I couldn't ever do it, okay, how's this? Fit a week worth of work in a minute. Machine well oiled, you know how I stay efficient. To-do list written, I do this different. Hold up, wait a minute, I ain't finished. Okay. Flows the same now. Paved the way, the snakes and fakes are chased out. Back to back to back, I changed the pace now. Had to stack the cash until the bank's out. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop.
Pretty edgy for Microsoft. Whoops.
Yeah, and so that's actually a commercial you might have seen during the Super Bowl, and it's really quick. And so I think what's interesting to note is, first of all, there's a lot of stuff that they shared with you in that short amount of time in terms of some of its capabilities. They bounced around a number of different apps, and they just showed you, just kind of in a hyped view, really some of the cool things that it can do. One of the things I think is important for everybody to understand is that, you know, the product itself still very much is in its infancy. I know it sounds crazy in terms of the power of what it can do. But this thing, literally, once they click this thing on, the data drain on data centers worldwide in Microsoft data centers was up by 12%. It's just amazing in terms of, you know, the actual computing power that it requires based on, you know, its ability to access not just CPUs and MPUs, but, you know, neural processing units now as well. And so that's going to continue to evolve and develop, and so will the product. So some of these things, you know, they did release a little bit free before prime time, but they're continuing to further develop. And so what we were told as partners was, consider this to be, you know, kind of in its infancy right now, very powerful though, and there'll be, you know, new features released on a time and regular basis. One of the things that Scott's going to show you here next is really, you know, how it works within Teams. And as you watch this next video, something important to know is that, so Microsoft Teams, which, you know, comes with your 365, in order to get some of the features that you see here, you'll need the Teams Premium Edition, which is an additional $8 per month. And then you'll need Copilot in order to leverage some of those. And so just to give you some clarity in terms of what this is within Teams, some of you may already know and may already have this. Teams with the recording capability and the transcription capability within Premium is a really cool feature, because it gives you the ability to do a lot of neat things. But coupled with Copilot, it gives you the ability to literally prompt it based on summarizing things that took place within the meeting. Give me a list of to-do items. I wasn't able to attend the meeting. Can you please give me a 5-minute highlight of what took place, who said what regarding the XYZ project or whatever it might be? And so this is one of the cooler applications of it. We'll show you. It's a quick video, so I try to keep along here.
Audio comes on here in a minute.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered, and it provides citations from the transcript so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool. But the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. You can see how it summarizes who said what points were made, and it's really capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions are unresolved. It's just amazing to see this happen in real time during a meeting.
You can see how powerful that can be. Just
imagine you have
it's looping there. And so the intelligent recap in Copilot here, this slide is a rather busy slide. So you'll see it gives you, if you can see on the bottom left part of the screen, it gives you the names and it gives you kind of audio clips of when they were speaking. So you can actually see who was actually speaking the most and who was actually speaking the least and when. And then, of course, through the transcription, it'll tell you, of course, what they were talking about. But the true power of Copilot within Teams gives you the ability to prompt it and ask it questions based on just summary of what took place in a meeting, what did you miss, what were some of the task items, some of the examples that you saw in there. And the real power in Copilot really comes from the ability to determine what the best prompts are. There's actual courses on how to best prompt Copilot, including chat as well. But just it's a super powerful feature, and I'm sure that you can see how this would dramatically improve your productivity, whether you're able to attend a meeting or not.
Yeah, great point. So let's look at Copilot within Outlook. Here's another demonstration from Microsoft.
Copilot in Outlook can help you prioritize your time and stay on top of meetings. Here you've been invited to a meeting that conflicts with a meeting you're planning to attend. Clearly, you can only attend one. From the meeting invite, you can choose to RSVP with follow. Switching over to your calendar, you can see that you're now following this meeting. Once the meeting starts on Teams, the organizer will receive a notification to record the meeting because someone is following it. Now, after the meeting is done and the recording is ready, Copilot will notify you that the meeting recap is ready for you to review. You can then ask Copilot some questions about the meeting, like, summarize this meeting, or are there any action items for me? That way you can stay on top of things as if you were present during the meeting.
And so some of the ways that I use Copilot in Outlook is that it literally helps me manage my emails by summarizing long email threads. It helps drafting replies based on email content. It helps prioritize emails that need urgent attention, and it just makes email management much faster and easier. You can basically say, summarize all the emails I've received from Scott on the Prodigy project over the last 3 weeks, and it'll go through, sort through what that is. It'll understand it in plain English, and it'll put together a quick summary that all I have to do is read that, and I'm up to speed on. So it's just amazingly powerful. And then Word, of course, here's another popular application. So yeah, go ahead and start the demo.
When you've written a paragraph in shorthand, you can highlight it and click Rewrite. Copilot then offers several alternate options to choose from that are all written professionally. And it can translate wordy or complex paragraphs into digestible visualized tables. You can even use Copilot to add a column with extra data, which it can complete automatically. Copilot also makes you the expert on any document. Simply ask a question about the content, and Copilot will provide a concise response.
So that's super cool. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, hey, I can probably do some of that stuff in chat, which you can, but you have to copy and paste. But one of the things that Word allows you to do is you can start with a blank Word document. Copilot's there. It's a little icon, and it's ready to help you. Whether you want to have it start a document for you, as an example, you can say, create a guide on best practices for cybersecurity for small to mid-sized companies and make that document 3 pages long. And that can be your starting document, right? And so just super cool things like that. And it's going to continue to evolve, but I mean, more to come.
Yeah, it's super exciting, Alex. We'll delve into Excel here. This doesn't really want to let me play this one. Let me go back and see. Well, technical difficulties, Alex, with their slide here. You want to delve into how you leverage Excel?
Yeah, that's okay. It's kind of funny because Microsoft ran into the same issue when they ran their demo on this as well. So, so to give you an idea with Copilot, it takes Excel and it helps you. It enhances Excel by generating complex formulas, creating pivot tables. And the coolest thing about it is it gives you insight based on that data. You can literally say, ask it natural language, can you please summarize the highlights of, what I'm looking at, whether it's forecasting or otherwise. And it'll look at the data, it'll analyze it for you, and it'll come up with automatic charts and graphs that that it thinks might be relevant to what you're trying to ask. And then if not, then you can continue to tweak it. So very cool. It was probably like a quick 50-second video. You didn't miss much, but I will tell you though, in Excel, it's super cool and it's continually being developed.
Yeah, and I think that's really one of the key powers within Alex, the Copilot, is the native integration with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, Outlook, etc. Versus chat, there are some APIs that you could leverage if you wanted to, or like you said, kind of a copy paste, but it really makes it much more powerful, particularly if you're already living within that ecosystem. So if you're a Microsoft user, this thing is really going to blow your socks off. This slide just kind of deals, I think, just foundationally with how Microsoft is approaching AI. And there's a lot of talk, unlike social media, with trying to be responsible as it pertains to the development of this super powerful application. And you've got a couple of things in terms of accountability and transparency that are foundational for Microsoft. So they have is why they're developing the product within your Microsoft tenancy. And you'll see some of the security pieces that we'll show you in a minute, but on how they're making sure that they take care of the data based upon how it's governed within that tenancy. And then really just 4 principles here in terms of fairness, reliability, privacy, and then inclusiveness, so that people can be treated fairly across as they leverage the AI, so that I don't get treated differently than Alex does, regardless of my background or abilities or any disabilities that I may have.
Yeah, and Scott, I wonder, I'm not sure whether the PowerPoint demo will run or not, but in any case, I do want to explain a little bit about how cool it is, because that's one of the other applications within Office that is super cool.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex. For whatever reason, they don't have a demonstration on PowerPoint,
yeah,
but I know
okay,
you've
that's
leveraged
right.
it for it.
That's right. Yeah, they didn't show that on this, but I can tell you that I've used it already, and it's unbelievable. So you can literally start with a blank PowerPoint document. I mean, many of us have gone through and tried to create our own slides. You got to pick the style and the format and the copy and pasting of pictures and the text and all of that, right? You literally go right to the prompt and you say, create a PowerPoint presentation referencing whatever data you might have already or whatever data you want it to go out to the web for. You can be as specific or as vague as you want. You can tell it how many slides you want. You can tell it what kind of pictures you want. This is just the natural language right at the user prompt. And it'll literally create a 5-deck PowerPoint presentation with pictures and content. And of course, it gets you about 90% there. So I mean, it's phenomenal in terms of its ability to really leverage AI, but not just utilizing a large language model, but its ability to reference any of the graphical information it has through DALL-E as well. So super cool. That I think is worth it in and of itself if any of you even use PowerPoint.
So here's a demo on their
Microsoft 365 Copilot works with the data security controls you have in place for file access, labeling, classification, and data loss prevention. Mario Rogers works for Violet Martinez, and both are on the same team at Contoso. Mario and Violet are also members in the same group working on Project Falcon. Now we'll start with Violet, who's been working with the procurement and contract management teams to sell their partner ReliCloud 1,500 Mark 8 quadcopters. And you can see the file is labeled highly confidential with restricted access, and it describes all the terms in the purchase agreement. Because Violet has access to the file, she's able to search for and find it in SharePoint and Microsoft365.com. And of course, Violet can also navigate to the file's location in the Agreements folder of the project site to find the purchase agreement. So now let's look at Mario's experience. Even though he's on the same team and working on Project Falcon with Violet, if Mario tries to search for the Contoso purchase agreement, he won't find it. And there are a few purchasing documents that he does find without sensitive information, but not the one that Violet's working on. And if Mario knows the location of the purchase agreement and tries to navigate to it directly, it just appears as an empty folder to him. And when Mario launches Word on the web and creates a blank document, then prompts Microsoft 365 Copilot to summarize the Contoso purchase agreement as a reference file, because Microsoft 365 Copilot respects the file permissions of its user, Copilot also cannot access the purchase agreement. Now, if we switch back to Violet's screen, because she has permission to access the purchase agreement, she can use Microsoft 365 Copilot to summarize the file. And after a moment, you'll see it created a summary of the purchase agreement, and Violet decides to keep it. Then data security controls for Microsoft Purview discover sensitive information found in the Microsoft 365 Copilot generated content. The document is labeled as highly confidential, and policies are enforced to restrict access to the document.
Yeah, I think, Alex, that's a great summary, and not only of the security aspect, but kind of what you were talking about with leveraging then company information, like in this Contoso's Microsoft's fictitious company in this purchase agreement. So being able to go find that document, look through that for information, and then provide you with new content, where as a leader, then you can more easily digest that information and do with what you need to with it.
Yeah, that's part of the whole readiness thing, which we'll get into here as well. And when you look at whether or not you're ready for it, this is an example of how not wanting to share sensitive information with people who shouldn't be seeing it. And so making sure that your data governance includes managing, securing, and complying with what your policies are as well as regulations within the Microsoft 365 environment. Data lifecycle management, how much of that data is old data. Data protection, who should see it, who shouldn't. Compliance related documents or otherwise. Any monitoring and reporting. And so this is essential, because you're really unleashing an AI robot, if you will, out there that has the ability to go out there and look at anything and everything. And what you don't want is Sally finding out how much Mark makes because there wasn't proper data governance in place.
Great point, Alex.
Microsoft.
So really, what do you do next, right? In terms of kind of taking a look at this thing, and this is really where it's kind of in three main steps, which is preparing the data that is within the Microsoft ecosystem. So obviously, if you've got data in Dropbox or other sources, nothing wrong with that. It's just Copilot's not going to be able to access that type of information, and chat doesn't either. Making sure then that wherever the data is within the Microsoft ecosystem, that it is secure, both within your environment, up in the cloud, and on the endpoint protection are all critical pieces of that. And then kind of optimizing your operations in terms of how it's going to get leveraged and who can do what and how you can use that data.
Yeah.
So really, what's next? And that's really, if you want to kind of schedule a meeting with us just for ease purposes, you can just email me. I'll make sure I'm not going to do all the stuff. We'll get our technical team to come out and with somebody on the team. But you can just email Scott K at cygnussystems.com or call me at directly at 248-849-9710, and just let me know that you'd like us to kind of come out and sit down and we can have a conversation about your unique situation, and then really kind of figure out together what the next steps may be for you in order to start leveraging this powerful tool for you or maybe some folks on your team. Wanted to thank you everybody again for attending. We really appreciate your time and interest in this really cool topic, and I want to thank you. Thanks very much. Alex, any parting words?
Just thank you. And I think, we're looking forward to helping to introduce this product to you responsibly. And I think that's one of the key things, is making sure that, the whole readiness component is in play. You got to dot your I's and cross your T's, so to speak, before you, consider, bringing this on.
Thanks very much. Look forward to speaking with you all, and have a terrific day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.